Dr. Amanda Pierce stared at the strange signals coming through her computer screen aboard the research ship Horizon's Edge. The patterns looked like nothing she had seen before in her 20 years of studying alien languages. The transmission had been intercepted 3 hours ago by their deep space monitoring equipment, and Amanda knew this was not meant for human ears. She called over her assistant, Jake Morrison, who was checking other equipment nearby. Jake had been working with Amanda for 5 years and could read the worry on her face even before she spoke. The transmission was being broadcast on 17 different frequencies at the same time, and each frequency carried the same message in what appeared to be different alien languages. "Get me everything we have on Zephyrian communication protocols," Amanda said while her fingers moved quickly across the keyboard. Jake nodded and began pulling up files from their database. The Zephyrians were one of the oldest known alien civilizations, and their language patterns had been studied by human scientists for decades. Captain Lisa Hayes walked into the communication room just as Amanda began making progress with the first few lines of the transmission. Lisa had been commanding deep space research missions for 12 years, and she had learned to trust Amanda's instincts about alien communications. When Amanda looked worried, it usually meant trouble was coming. "What do we have?" Dr. Lisa asked while looking at the screens filled with alien symbols and mathematical formulas. Amanda pointed to a section of translated text that made Lisa's face go pale. The words were clear and direct. Humanity had been marked for what the aliens called Protocol 7. Jake found the reference files for Protocol 7 in their database, and the information made everyone in the room go quiet. Protocol 7 was the Galactic Council's way of dealing with species that grew too powerful too quickly. It meant complete isolation followed by systematic elimination if the targeted species refused to accept technological restrictions. Amanda continued working on the translation while Lisa began checking their long-range sensors for any unusual activity. What they found confirmed their worst fears. Massive alien fleet movements were being detected throughout human space, and all of them were heading toward Earth colonies. The fleets were larger than anything humans had seen before. The translated message gave humanity exactly 72 standard hours to withdraw from all disputed star systems and accept permanent technological monitoring. Failure to comply would result in what the aliens politely called corrective measures. Amanda knew from her studies that corrective measures meant total destruction of human civilization. Commander Lisa Hayes immediately began sending coded messages to Earth Command while Amanda worked to decode more details from the alien transmission. What disturbed Amanda most was not the threat itself, but the casual way these civilizations discussed humanity's fate. They talked about eliminating an entire species the same way humans might discuss removing a pest infestation. Jake discovered that 12 different alien civilizations had signed onto this Protocol 7 declaration. The Zephyrian Empire was leading the effort, but they had support from races that controlled hundreds of star systems. Humanity controlled maybe 30 systems, and most of those were barely developed colonies with small populations. The message also contained detailed intelligence about human military capabilities that shocked everyone in the room. The aliens knew about secret human weapon projects that were supposed to be completely classified. They knew about hidden military bases and experimental technologies that even most humans did not know existed. Someone or something had been watching humanity very carefully for a long time. Amanda finished translating the complete message just as Captain Morrison arrived in the communication room. Morrison had been in command of the Horizon's Edge for 8 years, and he had never seen his crew look so worried. Lisa quickly briefed him on the situation while Amanda printed out the complete translation. Morrison read through the alien ultimatum twice before speaking. The message was clear that the Galactic Council expected either immediate surrender or desperate attempts at negotiation. They had dealt with dozens of species using Protocol 7, and every previous target had responded within hours with pleas for mercy or offers to compromise. "Sir, we need to transmit this to Earth immediately," Lisa said while preparing the communication equipment for a priority message to Fleet Command. Morrison looked at the translation again and then at his crew. He had been fighting aliens for most of his adult life, and he understood something about humanity that these galactic civilizations clearly did not. Negative, Morrison said while walking to the main communication console. We maintain complete radio silence, he continued while shutting down their primary transmission systems. Lisa and Amanda looked at him in confusion. Earth needed to know about this threat immediately. Morrison explained his reasoning while activating the ship's emergency protocols. The aliens expected humanity to panic and start broadcasting surrender offers or desperate pleas for negotiation. They expected humans to behave like every other species they had threatened with Protocol 7, but Morrison knew that humanity's greatest strength had always been doing the unexpected. We reply without saying a word, Morrison said while ordering his crew to prepare the ship for combat operations. The aliens would learn that humanity had received their message when human actions made the reply impossible to misunderstand. Jake began encoding the alien transmission for delivery to Earth through secure quantum channels that the aliens could not intercept. Amanda realized what Morrison was planning and felt both terrified and proud at the same time. Humanity was about to respond to the greatest threat in their history by doing exactly what their enemies least expected. They would not beg or negotiate or surrender. They would prepare for war in complete silence and let their actions speak louder than any words ever could. The 72-hour countdown had begun, and humanity would spend every minute of it getting ready to show these galactic civilizations exactly what kind of species they had decided to threaten. The warning had been received and understood. The reply would be delivered in a language that every civilization in the galaxy would understand perfectly. President Karen Miller sat in the emergency meeting room deep beneath the White House as Admiral Chris Parker finished reading the alien ultimatum for the third time. The quantum encrypted message from the Horizon's edge had arrived 6 hours ago, and every major world leader was now gathered either in person or through secure video links. The silence in the room was heavy as everyone processed what they had just learned. General Pete Williams from the European Defense Force was the first to speak. His experience fighting in the colony wars had taught him that enemies always expected certain responses to threats. The aliens were clearly expecting humanity to either surrender immediately or start desperate negotiations. Williams suggested they do neither. Admiral Parker agreed completely while pulling up military deployment charts on the main screen. Humanity had been building military strength for decades, but always in secret. The public knew about the colonial defense fleets, but they had no idea about the hidden shipyards or the experimental weapon programs that had been running in classified facilities throughout human space. Dr. Benjamin Clark joined the meeting through a secure link from the research station at Jupiter. His Advanced Weapons Research Division had been developing technologies specifically designed to fight alien civilizations. Most of his projects were so secret that even other military commanders did not know they existed. Clark confirmed that several prototype systems could be deployed within 48 hours. President Miller made the decision that would define humanity's response to the galactic threat. All military forces would mobilize immediately, but under complete communication silence. No radio chatter, no electronic signals that aliens could intercept, and absolutely no response to the ultimatum. Humanity would prepare for war like ghosts. Admiral Parker began coordinating the largest military buildup in human history through quantum encrypted channels and physical courier networks. Ships were pulled from patrol routes across dozens of star systems, while reserve fleets that most people thought were just training units were activated with full combat loadouts. Construction yards that appeared to be building civilian transports were actually producing military vessels. Captain Susan Wright received her orders while commanding a supply convoy near the Centauri system. Her mission was to establish hidden supply caches throughout contested space without being detected by alien reconnaissance. Wright had been running covert operations for 10 years, and she understood exactly how to move military equipment while appearing to be conducting normal civilian activities. The industrial capacity that humanity had developed during centuries of expansion was now turning toward military production. Mining operations in the asteroid belts began producing raw materials for weapons. Instead of construction materials for colonies, automated factories that had been building civilian equipment were reprogrammed to manufacture military hardware at unprecedented rates. Dr. Clark's Project Prometheus was activated across 17 different star systems simultaneously. The self-replicating mining and manufacturing platforms had been disguised as civilian industrial equipment for over a decade. Now they began converting entire asteroid fields into military production facilities while maintaining complete electronic silence. Commander Danny Martinez coordinated evacuation procedures that were actually military deployment operations in disguise. Civilian transports appeared to be fleeing from outer colonies in panic, but they were actually delivering weapons and trained soldiers to predetermined defensive positions. The evacuations looked chaotic, but every movement had been planned years in advance. On Earth itself, massive military preparations were taking place under cover of normal civilian activities. Weapon stockpiles that had been hidden in civilian warehouses were being distributed to military units. Soldiers who had been working in civilian jobs for years were quietly reporting to their real assignments. Transport systems that appeared to be carrying normal cargo were actually moving military equipment. The aliens had been monitoring human communications for months, expecting to intercept intelligence about military capabilities. Instead, they found exactly what humanity wanted them to find: commercial shipping schedules, civilian news broadcasts, and routine administrative messages. Nothing that suggested humanity was capable of mounting serious military resistance. Captain Rachel Torres commanded the hidden observation post in the Proxima system, where alien scout fleets were beginning to gather. Her orders were to observe and record everything but engage nothing. The aliens needed to believe they understood human defensive capabilities while learning nothing about humanity's true military strength. Torres watched alien ships conduct reconnaissance sweeps while her own forces remained completely invisible. The alien fleets continued moving toward human systems, expecting to find terrified civilians ready to surrender. Long-range sensors showed normal civilian traffic patterns in most human systems. Colony ships appeared to be conducting routine supply runs. Mining operations seemed to be continuing normal activities. Everything looked exactly like a civilization that had not yet received the ultimatum. Dr. Helen Foster analyzed captured alien technology samples that human intelligence had been collecting for years. Her research revealed something crucial about galactic military doctrine. Alien weapons and defensive systems had been designed to counter other alien technologies. They had protocols for energy weapons, plasma cannons, and gravitational disruptors. They had no experience dealing with kinetic weapons, chemical explosives, or nuclear devices. Admiral Parker realized that humanity's supposedly primitive military technology was actually a significant advantage. While alien civilizations had spent centuries developing countermeasures against each other's weapons, they had never encountered the brutal simplicity of human warfare. Aliens fought with elegant energy weapons while humans still used bullets and bombs. The 48-hour mark passed with alien fleets taking positions around major human systems. Their reconnaissance reported exactly what humanity wanted them to see. Some colonies appeared to be abandoned while others showed signs of panic. Civilian ships were fleeing toward Earth in apparent terror. Everything suggested that humanity was responding exactly as every other species had when threatened with Protocol 7. President Miller received confirmation that all military assets were in position and ready for combat. Hidden weapon platforms surrounded every major human system. Secret military bases were fully operational. Disguised warships were positioned for ambush attacks. The largest military force in human history was ready for battle, and the aliens had no idea it existed. The countdown continued toward the 72-hour deadline while alien commanders grew confident that they were facing another primitive species that would surrender rather than fight. They had no idea that humanity was about to teach the galaxy an important lesson about the difference between civilization and military capability. Zephyrian Admiral Corinth studied the tactical displays aboard his flagship Judgment of Zephyr while his fleet approached the human systems. In his 300 years of military service, he had enforced Protocol 7 against dozens of primitive species, and the pattern was always the same. First came desperate communications begging for negotiation, then frantic evacuation attempts as the threatened species tried to flee to distant systems. Finally, surrender offers and pleas for mercy. The humans were doing none of these things, and their silence was beginning to disturb Corinth's tactical staff. His communications officer reported that human space remained completely quiet except for routine civilian broadcasts. No government responses, no military communications, no panic signals from colony administrators. It was as if humanity had simply ignored the most serious threat in galactic history. Commander Zek suggested that perhaps the humans had not received the ultimatum properly. Some primitive species had communication problems that prevented them from understanding galactic standard protocols. But reconnaissance data showed that human monitoring stations had definitely intercepted the transmission, and human deep space vessels had changed course immediately afterward. Corinth ordered additional reconnaissance probes to investigate human systems more closely. The reports that came back were contradictory and confusing. Some human colonies appeared completely abandoned with no signs of recent activity. Other settlements showed normal population levels but with unusual activity. Patterns that made no sense to alien analysts. The probe data from the New Kansas agricultural system showed particularly strange readings. The farming colony appeared to be operating normally, but there were fewer transport ships than expected and almost no communication traffic between the surface and orbital facilities. Corinth's intelligence staff suggested that the humans might be evacuating secretly but leaving skeleton crews to maintain normal appearances on the human side of the conflict. Colonel Pete Williams was coordinating the defense of New Kansas with 3,000 volunteers from the Colonial Defense Force. His orders were to make the system appear normally occupied while preparing for the most important battle in human history. Williams had fought alien raiders before, but never against a full fleet with advanced technology. The colonial volunteers had been training for this scenario for years without knowing it. Regular defense drills had actually been preparation for fighting vastly superior alien forces using tactics that no galactic military would expect. Williams smiled as he watched his people take positions throughout the system. The aliens expected to find frightened farmers, but they were going to encounter combat veterans disguised as civilians. Commander Rachel Torres maintained her hidden observation post while alien scout fleets continued mapping human defenses. Her stealth technology was keeping her ships invisible, but she could see everything the aliens were doing. Their tactical formations and reconnaissance patterns revealed that they expected minimal resistance from primitive human forces. Torres recorded detailed information about alien weapon systems and defensive technologies, while her technical staff analyzed weaknesses in their equipment. The aliens used energy shields that were highly effective against plasma weapons but had never been tested against kinetic projectiles. Their hull armor was designed to absorb energy attacks but might be vulnerable to physical impacts. Dr. Helen Foster completed her analysis of captured alien technology and transmitted her findings to military commanders throughout human space. The alien weapons were incredibly sophisticated, but they all followed similar design principles. They were built to fight other aliens using predictable technologies and tactics. Humans could exploit these assumptions, Captain Susan Wright finished, establishing the last of her hidden supply caches while alien patrols searched nearby systems. Her supply network now extended throughout contested space with weapons and equipment, positioned exactly where human forces would need them. The aliens were looking for human military preparations, but they were searching in all the wrong places. The alien fleet commanders grew increasingly confident as their reconnaissance continued reporting limited human military capabilities. They observed small patrol vessels that appeared to be normal colonial defense ships. They detected weapon platforms that seemed designed for fighting pirates rather than military forces. Everything suggested that humanity would collapse quickly once serious pressure was applied. Admiral Corinth began planning the demonstration attack that would force human surrender. Protocol 7 required offering the target species one final chance to comply before beginning full-scale elimination procedures. The demonstration was supposed to be overwhelming enough to break enemy morale while being limited enough to allow surrender. The new Kansas system was selected as the perfect target for the demonstration attack. It was an important agricultural colony that supplied food to several other human settlements. Destroying it would show humanity that resistance was futile, while not eliminating so many humans that negotiation became impossible. Corinth assigned 30 vessels to the attack with orders to accept surrender if it was offered. Colonel Williams received intelligence reports about the incoming alien fleet and smiled grimly while reviewing his defensive plans. The aliens were bringing exactly the force that human planners had expected. Their ships were powerful, but their tactics followed predictable patterns, based on centuries of fighting other alien civilizations. They had no experience dealing with human creativity. The 72-hour deadline approached while both sides made final preparations. Alien commanders felt confident that they were about to add another successful Protocol 7 enforcement to their records. Human forces knew they were about to fight the most important battle in their species' history. The silence continued, but both sides understood that it would end very soon. Dr. Clark's prototype weapons were now deployed throughout human space and ready for combat testing against alien technology. The kinetic bombardment systems had been positioned where they could support defensive operations without being detected. Nuclear mines had been placed along likely attack routes. Chemical explosive devices had been hidden where aliens would least expect them. President Miller received final confirmation that all human forces were ready for battle. The industrial mobilization was complete and weapons were being produced faster than ever before in human history. Hidden bases were fully operational and disguised warships were in position for surprise attacks. Humanity had used the ultimatum period to prepare the most deadly trap in their military history. Admiral Corinth gave the order to begin the demonstration. Attack on New Kansas while expecting to receive human surrender offers within hours. He had no idea that he was about to discover why humanity's ancestors had conquered an entire planet using nothing but determination and superior tactics. The 72-hour deadline passed in complete silence from humanity while Admiral Corinth waited for the expected flood of surrender communications that never came. His communications staff reported that human space remained as quiet as it had been since the ultimatum was delivered. No government responses, no pleas for negotiation, no desperate offers to compromise. The silence was absolute and unprecedented in galactic history. Corinth felt growing frustration with what he perceived as primitive stubbornness mixed with concern about behavior that made no tactical sense. Every species that had faced Protocol 7 before had at least attempted some form of communication. The humans were acting as if the most serious threat in galactic history simply did not exist. The alien admiral ordered the demonstration attack on New Kansas to proceed as planned. 30 of his most advanced warships would destroy the agricultural colony while broadcasting demands for immediate human surrender. Corinth expected the attack to break human morale and flood his communication channels with desperate pleas for mercy from terrified colonial governments. Colonel Pete Williams watched the alien fleet approach New Kansas through his tactical displays while 3,000 colonial defense force volunteers took their final positions throughout the system. His people had been preparing for this battle for years, but they were still facing overwhelming odds against technology far superior to anything humanity officially possessed. The volunteers included farmers, who had been secretly training as artillery, specialists, miners who knew how to use industrial explosives in combat, and transport pilots who had learned to fly attack runs in civilian cargo ships. Williams had turned an entire agricultural system into a carefully planned killing field. While making it appear to be a normal farming colony, the alien fleet entered the New Kansas system in standard attack formation, expecting to encounter minimal resistance from primitive human defenses. Their sensors detected exactly what they expected to find. A few orbital platforms with basic weapons, some patrol vessels that appeared to be converted civilian ships, and defensive installations that looked like they were designed to fight pirates rather than military forces. Commander Zek led the alien attack while broadcasting surrender demands on all human communication frequencies. The aliens expected the humans to realize they were completely outmatched and immediately begin negotiating for terms. Instead, they received the same absolute silence that had characterized human responses since the ultimatum was delivered. Williams waited until the alien ships reached optimal range before giving the attack order that changed galactic military history forever. Hidden weapon platforms throughout the system opened fire simultaneously while disguised civilian ships revealed their true nature as heavily armed attack vessels. The aliens discovered they were not attacking helpless farmers, but fighting experienced soldiers using tactics no galactic military had ever encountered. The battle lasted exactly 17 minutes and ended with 27 alien vessels destroyed and 3 survivors desperately broadcasting retreat signals to their fleet command. The human weapons were primitive by galactic standards, but they were completely unpredictable. Kinetic projectiles tore through energy shields designed to stop plasma weapons. Nuclear explosives created damage patterns that alien defensive systems could not counteract. Williams had used mining charges to create artificial asteroid fields that channeled the alien ships into carefully prepared kill zones. Industrial equipment had been converted into weapon systems that delivered devastating attacks from unexpected directions. Civilian transports revealed hidden missile launchers that fired warheads the aliens had never seen before. The surviving alien commanders reported that human defensive capabilities had been severely underestimated. The agricultural colony had been defended by military technology that was crude but extremely effective. The humans had used their industrial infrastructure to create weapons that were outside all galactic military doctrine. Similar battles erupted throughout human space as alien forces discovered that their intelligence about human capabilities had been completely wrong. Systems that appeared to be lightly defended revealed massive hidden weapon networks. Colonies that seemed to be abandoned turned out to be elaborate traps. Transport convoys that looked like panicked evacuations were actually military formations. Moving to attack positions, Captain Roy Johnson commanded the defense of the Mars orbital shipyards, which were supposed to be an easy target for alien attack forces. Instead, he turned the industrial facility into a fortress that destroyed 2 entire alien squadrons, while capturing 3 intact enemy vessels for intelligence analysis. Johnson's forces used construction equipment as artillery and mining ships. As bombers and tactics that no alien military computer could predict, the captured alien vessels provided Dr. Foster with detailed information about galactic military technology that revealed crucial weaknesses in their defensive systems. Human weapons were primitive, but they operated on completely different principles than anything the aliens had encountered. Energy shields and armor designed to fight other aliens were ineffective against human kinetic weapons and chemical explosives. Commander Torres observed alien fleet movements from her hidden base and reported that enemy forces were beginning to show signs of confusion and concern. The demonstration attacks had been intended to break human morale, but instead they had revealed that humanity possessed military capabilities that existed outside galactic understanding. Admiral Corinth received battle reports that made no sense. According to established military doctrine, human forces were using industrial equipment as weapons, converting civilian ships into attack vessels, and employing tactics that violated every principle of civilized warfare. The primitive humans were fighting like barbarians who cared nothing for proper military procedure. The alien admiral's confidence began to crumble as more battle reports arrived throughout the day. Human defensive positions that should have been destroyed in minutes were holding out for hours while inflicting unacceptable casualties on attacking forces. The humans were not just resisting Protocol 7 enforcement but actually winning battles against vastly superior technology. President Miller received confirmation that human forces had successfully repelled the initial alien attacks while capturing valuable intelligence about enemy capabilities. The industrial mobilization was exceeding all projections and weapon production was increasing every hour. Humanity was not just surviving the galactic threat, but proving they could fight back effectively. Dr. Clark's experimental weapons had performed beyond expectations during the first battles and were being rapidly deployed throughout human space. The self-replicating manufacturing systems were converting raw materials into military hardware faster than the aliens could destroy human production facilities. Humanity's greatest advantage was their ability to adapt and improvise during combat. The day that was supposed to end with human surrender instead concluded with alien forces retreating from multiple star systems while broadcasting urgent requests for reinforcements. Admiral Corinth realized he was not facing a primitive species that could be intimidated into submission, but a military force that had been preparing for this war much longer than anyone had suspected. The galactic demonstration of power had become a human demonstration of something the aliens had never encountered before. A species that responded to threats, not with words but with actions that spoke louder than any communication ever could. Admiral Corinth stared at the tactical displays aboard his damaged flagship while trying to understand how a primitive species had turned his demonstration attack into a complete military disaster. The humans had destroyed over 60% of his attack force while capturing enough alien technology to significantly upgrade their own military capabilities. For the first time in his 300-year career, Corinth was considering something unprecedented in galactic history. The alien admiral activated his emergency communication systems and broadcast a message that shocked every member of his command staff. He was requesting a ceasefire with the humans, not demanding their surrender or threatening greater retaliation, but asking for a mutual cessation of hostilities while military leaders on both sides assessed the situation. The ceasefire request was transmitted on every known human communication frequency and repeated in 17 different languages. Corinth included cultural offerings and diplomatic protocols that were traditionally used when dealing with equal civilizations rather than primitive species targeted for elimination. The admiral was treating humanity as a legitimate military threat for the first time. Captain Lisa Hayes monitored the alien communications from her position aboard the Horizon's Edge and immediately transmitted the ceasefire request to Earth Command through quantum-encrypted channels. The fact that the Zephyrian Empire was asking for negotiations rather than demanding surrender represented a complete reversal of galactic policy toward humanity. President Miller convened an emergency session with the Global Defense Council to discuss the alien ceasefire request. The military situation had changed dramatically in humanity's favor, but the war was far from over. Alien reinforcements were arriving in nearby systems, and the Galactic Council was mobilizing additional fleets for what they now recognized as a serious military conflict. Admiral Parker reported that human forces had successfully established defensive control over all contested star systems while expanding their area of operations into previously neutral space. The industrial mobilization had exceeded all projections, and humanity was now producing military equipment faster than alien forces could destroy it. The balance of power was shifting rapidly in humanity's direction. Dr. Clark confirmed that captured alien technology was being reverse-engineered and integrated into human weapon systems. The combination of alien energy weapons with human kinetic systems was creating hybrid technologies that were more effective than either approach alone. Human military capabilities were advancing by decades with every captured alien vessel. President Miller authorized the response that would define humanity's position in galactic politics for centuries to come. Instead of accepting the ceasefire or responding with diplomatic messages, humanity would deliver its reply through actions that every civilization in the galaxy would understand perfectly. Operation Clear Signal was activated across all human military forces simultaneously. For exactly 60 seconds, every human fleet, every hidden weapon platform, every concealed military installation, and every disguised civilian ship revealed its true nature simultaneously. The display was coordinated across 50 star systems and broadcast on frequencies that could be detected by every monitoring station within 100 light-years of Earth. The revelation was staggering beyond anything alien intelligence had projected as possible. The humans had not been building a few dozen military vessels, but had been converting their entire industrial infrastructure into a massive military production network. Asteroid belts had been turned into weapon manufacturing facilities. Hidden bases existed in systems thought to be uninhabited. Civilian ships throughout human space revealed themselves to be military vessels in disguise. Admiral Corinth watched the display from his flagship and realized that his forces had not been fighting a primitive species with limited military capabilities, but had been engaging a small fraction of humanity's actual strength. The aliens had been monitoring human-civilian communications while completely missing a parallel military infrastructure that had been developing for decades. Captain Carol Davis received authorization to travel to the Galactic Council chambers, not as a representative pleading for humanity's survival, but as the ambassador from the newly established Terran Federation. The political situation had changed completely, and humanity was now negotiating from a position of strength rather than desperation. The 60-second display concluded with Captain Hayes transmitting humanity's first and only official communication to the Galactic Council. The message contained no words but consisted of a mathematical equation followed by detailed star charts showing the defensive capabilities of every system under human control. The equation was elegant and terrifying in its simplicity. It calculated the projected casualties for any military force that attempted to continue Protocol 7 enforcement against humanity. The numbers showed that successful elimination of the human species would cost the Galactic Alliance approximately 60% of their combined fleet strength and would require decades of warfare that would devastate dozens of star systems. Dr. Foster's analysis of captured alien technology had revealed that galactic military doctrine was based on centuries of predictable warfare between civilizations using similar technologies and tactics. Humanity represented something completely outside their experience. A species that combined advanced industrial capacity with primitive but effective military creativity. The star charts that accompanied the mathematical equation showed alien intelligence analysts exactly what they were facing. Human defensive networks that extended throughout contested space. Industrial facilities capable of producing military equipment faster than it could be destroyed. Hidden bases that could support military operations for years without resupply. Admiral Corinth transmitted his final report to the Galactic Council, with recommendations that would have been impossible to imagine just days earlier. Protocol 7 should be permanently canceled, not because humanity had agreed to accept restrictions, but because enforcing the protocol would cost more than any possible benefit. The humans had proven they were too dangerous to attack and too valuable to destroy. Ambassador Davis arrived at the Galactic Council chambers where representatives from dozens of civilizations were waiting to meet with the species that had just redefined military power in their region of space. The same alien leaders who had casually discussed humanity's elimination were now treating Earth as an equal partner in galactic politics. The council chambers buzzed with conversations in dozens of alien languages, but the topic was universal. How had a supposedly primitive species managed to build military capabilities that could challenge the combined forces of the Galactic Alliance? How had human intelligence been so completely wrong about their own defensive situation? President Miller received confirmation that Protocol 7 had been officially withdrawn and that humanity was being invited to join the Galactic Council as a full member rather than a monitored primitive species. The transformation from threatened civilization to galactic power had taken less than a week and had been accomplished without humanity speaking a single word until the war was already won. Dr. Pierce monitored galactic communications from her station aboard the Horizon's Edge and smiled as she listened to alien military analysts trying to understand what had happened. The discussions were unanimous on one point. No species in galactic history had ever responded to a containment order with such devastating effectiveness. The galaxy had learned an important lesson about the difference between civilization and military capability. Humanity had been warned that they were considered dangerous. Their reply, delivered without words, had been understood perfectly by every species monitoring the conflict. The message was simple and clear. Try it and find out.